going on, card collectors? It's Ken with Ken's Cardboard here. Hope you're having a great day. I am having a great day because I'm just hanging out with my baseball cards and making videos, so hope you are too. I'm doing a video response for John, Wade Boggs fan. He has asked us to talk a little bit about our collecting history, so I am going to tell you about the history from when I started to up to date. And I'm going to flip around the camera here and kind of show some things that I still have from my early days in collecting. Kind of go through some photographs and just show some things that I'm collecting. So it's kind of like just a day by day or a year by year, I guess, rundown of my collection over the last, I've been collecting since 1979. So that would be what? 30, 40, 41 years? Well, 41 years. All right, let's look back at 41 years of history. So when I was originally thinking about my collection and my collecting history, I thought I had really got out of baseball card collecting from a period of about 1991 to about 2011. But then I went back and took some notes. As you can see here, I jotted down pretty much trying to go back to every year, and I found that I was still collecting during that period, but just wasn't quite as much. And just, memory didn't serve me as to when that happened or whatnot, but I kind of jotted down every year, and I pretty much found something that I was collecting during that period. So really originally started out when I was 8 or 9 years old. I was at school and the playground, and kids were flipping these exact cards here, these 1977 Topps cards, which are really cool. Still have these. They're all pretty beat up because they were thrown on the sand in the sandbox. They were throwing them against the wall, and they were playing a game of flip, and got some really nice soft corners on them. And they didn't really want the cards after they started flipping them, and so these are the first cards I ever collected. Nice and beat up a little bit here, but that was the first cards I ever collected. And then from then on, I went on to get more interested in baseball and baseball cards itself. I remember going to a game at Dodger Stadium and bought my first pack of 1979 cards there, and was hooked on baseball cards, I think, for a while after that. So each day I would go to walk home from school, and I would stop at the liquor store and pick up a few packs from any money that I'd earned doing chores. I would do chores, and I'd get a quarter for every chore. And my brother was kind of lazy, and he didn't want to do his chores, so I'd do his chores too, and then I'd get the quarters for those as well. So I would save up as much money as I can, and every day I would stop by the liquor store and pick up those packs. I did that probably till about 1984, from 79 to 84. And then during that period of time, I started thinking about that same period. I was started collecting, trying to get complete sets. So I don't know if you guys ever seen this, but this is a official 1983 baseball card price guide. Looking back in the day, I used to take this with me to go to swap meets and flea markets. I used to go to the Saugus swap meet down in Southern California where I lived, and had like phone numbers on here of baseball card shop that I would go to and look at prices. I was looking at some prices in here from like 1963, and like 63 Pete Rose card was going for like $20 in here at that time. Or no, $60, excuse me. As you can see, this thing is, the pages are falling out of it. They're kind of falling out of this thing, because I used to carry it with me whenever I went to the swap meet, and I would check off the cards I needed. So here's my 1979 checklist that I had when I was going through collecting those cards. But I ended up getting the whole complete set, so it took a while, but ended up doing that. Most of them I picked up from those swap meets. I also had another official guide from 1985, another book. I think the last one of these bought from this was a 1987 price guide. I don't know if I ever checked anything off in this book, but there you go. So that was happening in the early 80s. I started to become a player collector in the early 80s, and my focus was on Pete Rose. As you can see here, I got several Pete Rose cards you've seen in my background before, but here's the 64 rookie. I used to go to the local card shop that was by me, and he occasionally would have some Pete Rose cards, and this is where I picked up this card here. Actually, I think I got this one off of eBay, but I picked up several Rose cards. I think it was probably some of these other ones here. This 66 Pete Rose. But used to go to the card shop and pick up those occasionally when my mom would drive me there. And then about, as you can see here in this binder here, I have a bunch of Pete Rose cards that I picked up from that card shop. Every once in a while I'd find something at the flea market. But I was a Pete Rose collector. Then I also started to become player collectors as well, of players like Darryl Strawberry, Ryan Sandberg, Wade Boggs, Mark Grace, Will Clark. Those are some of my favorite players. So I had a binder that I started collecting cards of those players. And back then, there was only Topps, Donruss, and Fleer. And I never found any Donruss or Fleer packs at the stores when I was shopping. So, this video is going to take a little while, but so back in '86, I ended up buying my first box of hobby box from a card shop. It was 1986 Topps. I was going to put together that set, but I decided set collecting wasn't my thing. But I did end up going back and finishing my 1983 set and 1981 sets. I think I had a 1984 set as well, but I think I sold that. But my favorite set of all time is the 1983 set that has the awesome rookies of Wade Boggs, Tony Gwynn, and Ryan Sandberg. Pretty cool collection. And 81, has a great set as well. Has the Ricky Henderson rookie. But those are some of my favorite. And then in 1988, I graduated from high school and got a job, and so I had some disposable money, and that's when I started really getting in heavy into buying cards. I was buying football cards, basketball cards, baseball cards, the whole lot of those. And then in about '89, I started collecting Sacramento Kings cards because Sacramento finally got a basketball team that came from the Kansas City, Missouri, and so I have a few Sacramento Kings cards that I still have in my collection. And then also 1989 was a great year when Upper Deck came out, and I remember opening packs of Upper Deck, and I opened, probably a couple of boxes worth of that, and ended up getting 2 Griffey rookie cards out of those packs. Still have that's one of the cards I pulled out of those packs in '89. Upper Deck was the brand of choice that I loved. I thought they were great. I loved the images on the back and the front. So Topps was behind the day. This one doesn't have the images on the back, but Score started to put images on the back of cards, and Upper Deck followed soon. Then about 1990, I kind of realized that, man, these cards are worthless. I've seen some of these cards. You can buy them at, the grocery store. You could buy them at the liquor store. You could buy them at, the club stores. They had the pallets full of them. Geez, they're all of them. So I kind of got out of the hobby from about 91 to 1993. I had about 30,000 cards in my collection, most of it in monster boxes, and I probably had about 3 or 4 binders worth of stuff. And then 1993, I moved to Colorado to go to college at University of Colorado, and then kind of, I was going to college, didn't have time for baseball cards at that point. So that was about it in 93. And then in 94, so about 93, 94, 95, through 97, I wasn't really collecting much. 94, I went back to my parents' house in California, grabbed all my cards. I still had them, didn't get rid of them, and brought them out to Colorado. And then 1995, I met my awesome wife, Amy, and we got married, and focus still wasn't on cards. And then 97, I got tired of moving the cards, so I decided to sell my cards because I wanted some tools to build things. So I like to build things. If you've seen some of my videos, I still have some of those tools from then. So I had about 30,000 cards, and I sold about 27,000 and kept about 3,000 of them, which I still have. And sold those for, I think, about $350 to a card shop in Denver, and that card shop is still there. It's Mike Stadium Sports Cards. He's still there. And so then I bought tools to make things like this shelf that's in the background here. You can see, made that with some of the tools I still have. And I've always been into woodworking, one of my other hobbies. So at that point I wasn't collecting. So in 1999, the thing came out called eBay. That's when in the late 90s, and I opened up an account in 1999, and I started getting a little bit back into, since the Broncos were really successful, they won the Super Bowl, I started collecting football cards, and my favorite player on the Broncos was Mr. Ed McCaffrey here. This is an awesome autograph card from Stadium Club. Love the Stadium Club, still do, but this is a 2000 Stadium Club. And so at that point, I was getting more into memorabilia and stuff too. So I started collecting things like this Bo Jackson autograph baseball and some other autograph baseballs and stuff that I have, bats. I got a Pete Rose autograph bat as well. But then, so I started back, basically, I thought I got back in collecting in 2011, but it was really more like 1999. And then in 2000, there was this thing that Topps had called E-Tops. I don't know if you guys remember that, but I think it kind of faded out about 2012, but I ended up purchasing some cards on E-Tops, including this Ed McCaffrey card here. This is a 2000, and from the first year. And I think I have a bunch of cards that are still on that program. They're just so expensive to get them shipped out to you, so I still have them there. I was investing in football cards, like players who I thought were going to be great in football, but that didn't work out so well. Kind of lost some money on that. Convinced my wife, oh, we should get some of these. These are a good investment. That didn't turn out too well, but didn't get too heavily lost in that. Then about from 2001 to 2006, I just started collecting more Ed McCaffrey cards. I have a binder of about 500 different unique cards of Ed McCaffrey. Here's some photographs of some of those cards. And I was also collecting a lot of memorabilia with, things going on with football, and the Avalanche were pretty big too. So I started getting into some Avalanche cards. My favorite player at that time was Joe Sakic. So I got a few cards of Joe Sakic in my collection as well. Then about 2007, I started to collect some Rockies cards because the Rockies went to the World Series. They actually had a decent team. And so I started to pick up Rocky sets. Specifically, I was focusing on Upper Deck. I did that till about 2011 because Upper Deck lost their license at that point. And then I started focusing on the top sets. And then also, of course, I was still picking up lots of memorabilia, a lot of autographed baseballs I would get at Rockies games. Every Sunday they would have a player sign before the game started. So I get lots of autographed baseballs. The baseballs I would get during batting practice, I would catch home run balls during batting practice. So I have like 100 different, like 70 or 80 baseballs that I have. A lot of them are not signed yet, but some of them I have signed. And then in 2011, I was just, like I said, I was focusing on memorabilia. But then I bought a box of Allen and Ginter, and they have the mini cards in here. I love these mini cards. And they have these weird cards like the Tiger and Hawaiian Monk Seal, Human Cannonball, the Winchester Mystery House, all kinds of weird things, Tightrope. So that was my first hobby box. I actually bought that. I was on a work trip in Hawaii. I was working on a project there and ended up going to a card shop and bought a box of that. I ended up getting, the best card I ended up getting was a hand-numbered bazooka back of Mariano Rivera, numbered to 75, and I think I ended up selling that for like $75. That was a pretty good deal. And then about 2012 to 2017, I started to play. I had a smartphone at that point. I started messing around, and Topps had an app that came out called Topps Bunt. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that or not, but they're electronic trading cards. So I started collecting those for a while. At times I would still pick up a few cards here and there through packs every year. I would stop by the Target and pick up your retail packs, like when you used to be able to pick up packs before the pandemic. So I pick some of those, and I'd probably pick up 2 or 3 packs every couple months. So I had some cards from that period, but not too many. And then 2018 happened, and since I was on my phone all the time, I started seeing these YouTube videos of people opening packs online and breaking boxes and stuff. And I said, wow, people are still actually into baseball cards. I thought, they weren't really worth very much, at the time. So I decided I was going to look back into this and get into this thing. I wanted to share my collection with other people. So this YouTube thing was pretty cool. I saw that I started following more people that were sharing their collection on YouTube, and that's kind of got me really focused on getting back in the hobby. So, and then I ended up buying a couple of jumbo boxes of 2018 Update, which, boy, that was a good set. That was a good product to buy. I opened a whole box of those, and then I saved another box, which I have since sold, but made quite a profit on it. And then in 2019, I decided to jump full bore into the hobby again. I decided to take some money that I had just sitting around some stocks that wasn't doing much, wasn't going up very high, and just take that money and pour it into some baseball cards. I ended up getting some graded cards that I have now that in my collection. Think that there'll be, some great players, MVP players like Mookie Betts and Christian Yelich. And I started to pick up some vintage cards, get into vintage, and one of the first vintage cards I picked up was this awesome Sandy Koufax card here, 1955 rookie card in a 6.5. So also started picking up some Mike Trout cards and some other things. But yeah, I started focusing on Dodgers vintage. Growing up in LA, I was a Dodgers fan when I was a little kid. So my dad was a Dodgers fan when he moved from Michigan to LA in the 50s. So I've been starting to pick up, not really graded cards, but just cards from the 60s and 70s of Dodgers players that my dad liked and that I liked. So that's kind of where I am right now. I've started making videos on YouTube. I started with a video response and then started sharing my collection. Now I'm, been collecting a lot of Nolan Arenado cards. As you can see, I collect a lot of Arenado. I have a rainbow of that. I started getting into Todd Helton cards, like the autographs, going back to the 90s. I picked up a huge collection back in February of about 50,000 baseball cards, because there was a whole period of collecting, like I mentioned, it from the late 90s to early 2000s. I didn't have a lot of cards, and so I've been going through those, making binder showcase videos of all that. Most of those cards are in binders, probably about 10,000 of them, and another 40,000 were in monster boxes, but most of them were not in very good condition, so those went by the wayside. And now I'm collecting players like Mr. Bichette here, this shiny Kaboom card, this cool SP card that I got from my buddy Dan at Hard Art Cards, and cool stuff like that. So that's my story, guys. I tried to keep this under 20 minutes, so it looks like I did that. And enjoy participating in this community with you guys. And John, way Boggs fan, congratulations on 250 subscribers in your contest. Thank you guys for just, supporting my channel and support everybody else out there in the hobby, just sharing their card collection. Hope you guys enjoyed the story, a little bit about my card collecting history. Hope you have a great one. Take care, everybody.